Hi and welcome to the Mum Drum. I'm Amy Fellman.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Hyatt, and we're excited to bring you conversations with experts, mums, and occasionally their partners about motherhood.
In the Mum Drum, we chat about the challenges so many of us face as we experience what is arguably the biggest identity shift of our lives, becoming a parent. We also explore how we can embrace both the beautiful parts and the chaotic parts to find our new normal. So that's why we're here, to have real conversations about motherhood.
To kick off this series, we thought we'd talk to a group of fabulous women about their real experiences. In particular, we want to delve in to understand their expectations of becoming a mum versus the realities that they've faced and how they've managed their journey in their own unique ways.
So over coffee, tea and pastries, that's what we're going to do. So let's go and see what they have to say. Before becoming a mum, did you ever imagine about what motherhood would be like?
I always knew that I wanted to have children and that I wanted a family. I'm not sure I thought too much about what that would actually look like.
I didn't have any clear expectations of bringing up children. It was more about the family warmth, chaos, dinners, that kind of thing.
I was reflecting about this on the way here, and I think for me, I sort of imagined the warmth and the love of a family unit, which is what I grew up in, and I was lucky enough to have two parents that loved each other and a brother and, that nuclear family. And so I sort of always imagined the feeling. I didn't really, I guess no one can ever know what it's really like until you actually do it. What I wasn't prepared for was the incredible physical and mental toll that it takes on you every single day, and that, struggle to the finish line at the end of the day to get the boys down and just get on the couch and just breathe out.
I'd say that it's the biggest challenge of my life so far, because back in Brazil I used to have a lot of support, not only from my family, but it's a cultural difference. We would have more help from external people. I used to have a maid, I used to have someone who would cook for me, and here everything is on me. And with two kids, it's tough, but it's worth it.
What has been some of the most challenging parts of motherhood for you?
The most challenging part of having a baby, I suppose, was having absolutely no idea what to expect and having no one to model myself off in my intimate circle. My mum passed away when I was 21, so I didn't really have that person in my life to kind of guide me. And that was certainly challenging and scary. But I did have other people that really filled that hole for me. People stepped up and they were incredibly wonderful. My former partner's mother came over from Scotland and stayed with us for the first month of Lyra's life, which was just incredible. And my stepmother also was around to fill in the gaps, and that was wonderful for me. I don't want to sound like a sob story, because it's not. Everything has a happy ending, and I'm incredibly grateful to be a mum. But I suppose I was super scared for the majority of my pregnancy. I didn't have that feeling of I know a lot of people feel they can't wait to get it out of them by the end, and I just wanted to stay in. I just was not ready. Even at 36 weeks, 38 weeks, I was just terrified of having a baby.
The pregnancy was pretty great with Kyan. I think I was pretty lucky on the pregnancy front, and then I did think to myself that you can't sort of have 10s across the board. I was preparing myself for, I just thought labour's probably going to be hard, and it was sort of a bit of a culmination of events of things kind of not going great. So I ended up having to have an emergency Caesar. Lots of things just happened. The epidural didn't really work. It was a whole lot of kind of things that kind of went wrong at once. My perceptions of how it was going to go and how it went were very different. And my recovery, I really think that affected my recovery afterwards. I feel like the first kind of 12 weeks afterwards, I was under a bit of rubble physically and emotionally. I think I just took time to actually come back to myself. I think you sort of, especially for the first kind of 6 to 8 weeks, you're in this sort of mum robot, just of autopilot of everything you're having to do. And it took a while to sort of return back to myself, like my sense of humour and like my personality and my independence. And so I think it all kind of sewed together to make the first phase of motherhood quite trying. And then it got easier and got better.
It's been a really crazy, beautiful journey so far with 2 kids. With Miller, my daughter, I'm not her birth mum, my partner is her birth mum, and I'm the birth mum of Hugo. So it's been a really interesting journey because it's been quite different in terms of just the experience with each child. So I obviously didn't have the pregnancy journey. I wasn't at home with Miller. My partner Steph was at home with Miller for the first year, and I also was trying to balance being a mum with working full time.
So did that surprise you? There was these expectations of how you wanted to be as a mum, but yet you were working full time and you weren't the primary caregiver at that point.
Yeah, and look, I think I wanted to be super involved, and I almost wanted to be like I was the primary caregiver, but I wasn't. And I suppose at some point you kind of have to, or I had to just, come to terms with that, and realise that I was doing the best that I could do while working full time, and being Miller's mum, and just being Miller's mum in a slightly different way to Steph was, because I wasn't with her as much, but then really cherishing the time, that we did have together.
Every day's challenging, but probably an unexpected challenge was the career sort of stagnation. I've really struggled with that. I've been quite an ambitious woman and always valued career as a huge part of my life and self-worth. And then pretty much since I've had babies, that's kind of stayed at ground zero and just, nothing's really, I haven't, moved forward at all. So I found that frustrating. I got made redundant on maternity leave, which I've actually, since talking to other women, that happens very regularly, more than we realise. And so that was flattening again, and then I got a new job. I'm working part-time, so that's never, you're never putting your foot down as much as you perhaps hope. So yeah, it hasn't been ideal really.
I think for me the biggest surprise came in realizing how much you need to give in of yourself and how much the focus of your life changed. So after having Nina, so it was all about her and not more about me. I kind of forgot about myself, and all my focus was on that little person that needed me.
It's just that the relentless, all-consuming nature of parenthood. So as much as you try and not make every minute about the kids, every minute is about the kids. So, from the moment they wake up, getting through the day, and then, getting them finally into bed. Unfortunately, then the time you have with your partner at the end of that is recounting things that happened that day with the kids, or, things you've got to think about for tomorrow. And, I don't think I'd really prepared myself or even really understood how much of a piece of your life that becomes, and how much you kind of lose of who you were, especially in the first few years of motherhood.
Relationships take a real beating when kids come along, especially if they weren't super strong to begin with. And I know my relationship with my partner was affected by parenthood, and maybe not even so much by parenthood, but just by the fatigue that sets in with parenthood and the new expectations upon you. I think there's real reason to talk to the men as much as talking to the women, because they're kind of meant to be there to provide for you, and I think a lot of them struggle with that need and pressure to provide, but also to know what to do and how to help, and they feel, I think they felt pretty helpless and kind of like failures as well.
And I think it relates also to less time for your partner, your relationship. So you don't have time to sit and have a proper dinner, you don't have time to talk, you don't have time to enjoy a glass of wine, you're just there with the baby, and it's lovely, but you kind of miss out.
To juggle between work and being a parent, and you still want to be a good partner, and you still want to be, friend, and and you still want to do the things that you want to do. If I leave work early because I need to pick up the kid and I can't finish the thing I had to finish, I felt bad. And if I had to stay late at work and I miss like bedtime story, I felt bad. So it was always like those guilt feelings all the time. So that was what was very difficult. But as time goes by, you understand, I have limitations. I can't do the best. I need to relax a little bit and to accept the limitations that I have.
Really bringing your partner into everything from the beginning and setting that expectation so you don't feel like you're having to sort of ask them to do things, and to, that it's just when everything's kind of 50-50 from the beginning, you feel really rock solid and really supported. And I think that was a huge part in just being able to kind of get your strength back and be able to share things together. I think that was really big.
In early motherhood, breastfeeding was really tricky for me. My daughter lost a lot of weight in the hospital over that 10% magic number where they, I think she was at like 13 or 15%. And everyone freaked out, and I freaked out. So, and it just was really, really hard to get right for me. So I went home with this baby that wasn't feeding properly. And I remember that first night, oh my God, coming home from the hospital, and I'm sure everyone has vivid memories of that night, but it was like the worst night of my life. And everyone talks about how great the first, how blissful you're meant to be and how loved up you're meant to be. And I just wasn't, I was just terrified.
And how did that make you feel as a new mum, really struggling to feed your baby?
Oh, terrified and completely like a failure. Yeah. But I just remember crying, and the maternal health nurse, I called them at 9 a.m. as soon as I could, and they were really great. They basically, they come over and check you, and we came up with some solutions. I went and saw a maternal health nurse. I went and saw a breastfeeding consultant. I eventually went on Motilium, which is the medicine that helps your milk come in, and that was brilliant. And once there were some solutions, and I just kept going really hard, and it worked out. But it's not to say, I used formula too, because I had to, and it took a lot of the pressure off. And I wish I felt so much shame about it, because I think people make you feel ashamed of it, particularly people who work in the breastfeeding sphere. And so I did feel a lot of guilt and shame about that kind of stuff, and I just wish I hadn't.
With another mum who might be struggling with breastfeeding.
Yes.
And who might be feeling that guilt and getting that judgment.
Yes.
What would you recommend to that mum?
I would say, I don't want to fall down the camera right now. I would just say, try your best. Look for, go to your GP and talk to them about, potentially some Motilium and some other options. But absolutely buy yourself a can of formula and have it in the cupboard for those really terrible nights when you need to go to sleep and someone else can feed your baby for you, or you can just do it. It's just so not the big deal that I think it is. That people make it out to be.
It's so interesting thinking about myself as a person with opinions before I had kids. I was, very clear about what I thought parents should and shouldn't do, and I work with parents talking about their parenting and what they can do and maybe shouldn't be doing. And then once you're in it, it's a completely different kettle of fish.
And the worst part is when you lose your cool, because it sort of shows how easily that can happen and how you're flawed. And you don't normally, before kids, you don't lose your cool at people. You don't walk around the street having a go at other adults. And so when you really do lose your absolute shit, and they're only little, and then the guilt that comes after that, and then the the torment and all that sort of stuff and beating yourself up. I think that's probably what gets me the most.
You know, there's a lot that I'm not proud of, which is, you know, the screaming and the shouting and, you know, threatening and all the tactics that I feel like I'm desperately trying to employ at the moment to keep him in line. But yeah, then you have those little moments where you see kind of the fruits of your labour and you think, okay, maybe I'm not the worst mum in the world.
So what are you most proud of as a mum?
I'm really proud of my body.
Yeah?
In that, and when I say that, I mean that, you know, that I was able to get pregnant and that I grew this little person. I have a newfound respect for my body. I didn't really think about it before I was pregnant, but now having this little person and looking at him and thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I made him. That's pretty incredible. I guess I'm proud of myself that I know that I'm doing everything I can to give him the best start in life. And I just feel really lucky that I'm able to take time off work and spend time with him, and be supported by my beautiful partner, Steph, to do all of that. So I'm proud of myself, I'm proud of our family, and of course I'm proud of my beautiful children.
So what would your one piece of advice for someone who might be expecting their first baby, what would your piece of advice be for them, looking back from your own experiences?
I would say the first 2 years feels really slow. It goes really slowly. It might feel like it goes fast in spots, but God, like, I really felt like the first 2 years was tough going, not a lot happens, they can't talk to you, they're not your friend yet, but there is so much light and hilarious fun at the end of the tunnel.
What advice would you give to other mums?
You know, it's that old cliche, I think, of you've just got to do what's right for you. And it just goes back to that comment I made about judgment that we have as women about women. Unfortunately, I think we can be the hardest people to please. We, you know, so often have so much to say about each other, and we talk a lot about support and the importance of being a network of women who love and support each other, but we're also the first people to say, oh, about, you know, what someone else is doing. And I think maybe my advice would be to try and drop some of the judgment and do whatever is best for you. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing and just work out what's right for you and your kids and your family as you get through it.
It is so easy to judge one mom, but you never know when you'll be handing out your phone to your own child during dinner time because you just need to.
That's what I love about motherhood as well, is that really everyone is going through the same thing and no one's finding it easy. Like, and if they are, then they're lying. We're all doing it, you know, it's not, you know, you don't have to be perfect. Just relax and do the best you can, really, because we're all just trying.
I mean, I think mothers, we have a lot of like a mental load that we put upon ourselves. That society puts upon us, but we need to stop just talking about society's judgment of us and pushing back against it and making some decisions for ourselves. If we don't want to feel that judgment and we don't want to have to do everything, we need to let partners or let our families take some of that load for us, or childcare, or school, or, you know, we don't have to do everything perfectly all the time. You have to look after yourself and what you need, and that means sacrificing some time with your kid, or sacrificing time at work if it's the other way around, or just giving other people some responsibility, even if they're not going to do it the same way that you would. There needs to be a balance with that.
I think first of all, be really kind to yourself and remember that, I mean, it's, you know, people say it all the time, but you really do realise like a happy mum is a happy baby, and just finding time for a cup of tea, just a little bit of a, you know, time to decompress, or, you know, to see friends, or something that lifts your spirit and just invest back in yourself will pay you back tenfold. And so I think just not being so focused on your bubba that you don't have time for yourself.
Is there any advice that you'd like to give to other mums, maybe other mums from families like yours?
I just think it's possible to create families in all different ways, and you know, if you want to have children, it's certainly not impossible. Obviously people have different challenges, but in terms of our situation, it's possible to do it, and it's just the most amazing thing. So I think start thinking about it if it's something that you think you want. Don't leave it too late.
So it sounds like it's all worth it.
It is worth it. But I tell you what, and I said this, I reckon there was times when she was a baby, and I would have been asked that question, and I was, fired from my job and having a terrible time with my partner and away from my friends, and I wasn't able to go to parties because I was breastfeeding or something like that. And I would have said, I'm not sure it's really worth it. Mm-hmm. Because I had a really fun life before I had kids, and I want to have more fun without them. But yes, I would say now with a 5-year-old, it's so worth it. Absolutely.
It's been incredible. I suppose, overwhelming sense of love.
Is it worth it?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, they're amazing. They do bring a lot of joy, and it's sometimes the amount of love that I feel, I think I'm gonna explode. Seriously, it's such cliche to say, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's really, I think it's just the really little things that, they're not big things, they're just when, Eddie's 4.5, says spontaneously, I love you, mummy. And then it's like, oh, that makes it all worth it.
I think my mum said it to me best when she said, when you have kids, it's like a little piece of your heart grows arms and legs and is running around outside of you, and you're just looking at a piece of yourself. And I think that's what you can't really understand until it happens, is like that feeling of this little mini you that is so special. And it's an amazing journey, lots of ups and downs, 100% worth it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Wow, wasn't that just such an incredible experience of listening to so many mums talking about the wide, diverse range of experiences they have, and just shows a huge range of challenges that mothers face.
Totally. I just loved how open and generous and vulnerable these mums were. It's so powerful to hear these experiences, because you're left feeling as a mum like, wow, I'm not alone in this.
So thanks so much for watching, and if you'd like more information on any of the topics discussed today or any other issues around the challenges of having a baby, visit cope.org.au, and to stay in touch with the latest developments throughout your pregnancy and first year of motherhood, sign up to readytocope.org.au today.
And we will see you next time on the Mum Drum. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you all to those incredible mums that shared their stories with us today.